Welcome, everyone. We are going to give it just a second to make sure that we are all live. Please do let me know if you can't hear me. I will try to speak as loudly and as clearly as I can. My name is Nicole Carpenter. I'm the Director of Programs and Education here at the Westport Museum. Tonight, we are holding our Tuesday Treasure program. This is usually a monthly program, but we are bringing it live to you once a week. Tonight, we are going to talk about the Westport Owls football team. Now, the journey down this path actually began for the museum many, many years ago. But what really sparked our attention was this past January, we received a donation of several photographs. Now, I will show you these photographs really well. I will come to you. We have several of them here, not all of them. Now, these photographs were donated, but they were unlabeled. We do not know who these individual men are, but we do know they are the Owls football team. I'll show you another one as well. The first one that I just showed you is not labeled in any way, so we don't know the year of that photograph. We do have some clues from their uniforms. We also have this photograph of the team, which is labeled down here at the bottom. You can see it. It says 1925. Now, we received these photographs knowing that they were the Owls, and it was labeled Westport, Connecticut. But we didn't know that much about the team itself. So we naturally asked everyone on our staff and some of our frequent volunteers. We were very fortunate that one of our volunteers remembered during an inventory of seeing a sweater with the word Owls sewn across the front. And you can see that sweater here. Now, going through our records, we of course keep record of all of the items that come into our collection. We went through these files and we found that this sweater was donated in 1988. And it was donated by a Willard Williams. Now, in those collection records, he also mentioned that he wore this sweater in the 1920s when he was indeed a part of the Owls football team in Westport. That was all the history that we had, though. So we decided to turn to another resource, which was amazing. We turned to our newspaper records. And this came up with a lot of entries. One of the reasons it came up with so many entries was because not only was there a football team called the Westport Owls, but there was also a basketball team, and later on there was a bowling team. So we came across a lot of mentions of the Owls. Now, we were able to narrow it down to just the football team, and we were able to find some really, really interesting facts and some interesting games that the team played, which I'm going to tell you just a little bit about. The earliest mention that we found of the team was in 1924. I apologize. 1921, so we were even able to find them earlier than that. Now, this game was played against the Bridgeport Irons, and it was a victory of 24-7. There wasn't anything particularly notable about that game, but it was the very first one that we could find. Now, this team was a semi-professional team. It was a town team. At the time, Staples High School didn't have a football team, so the team was made up of younger men, men in their 30s, and possibly in their 40s. Again, we don't see many ages listed, but we do know that there would have been a range of men of these ages. As they were a semi-professional team, they would have been paid, at least certain players would have been paid per game. And now, again, we aren't sure exactly which players were and were not, but it's something that we continue to research into. Now, when the Owls played at home, they played in a variety of different places. One of them was the Kioski lot on Post Road and Greens Farms Road. Another was an open lot on Hillendale Road. And after 1925, the team is advertised as playing at the Bedford Oval on Riverside Avenue. Frequently, they would advertise having free weekends, games that they were seeking to play, and often they would call out another team specifically that they were interested in squaring up against. Some of these two teams included the Norwalk West Ends and the Springwoods, the Bridgeport Mohawks and the Columbia Bulldogs, also the Black Rock Juniors. There was also the Stamford Bearcats and a team called the Stratfields. Now, an interesting game that was played was in 1924. This was a game that was played against the Bridgeport Lakeviews, and it was a win for the Owls of 19-0. The members of that team, really quickly, were one Willard Williams, who wore the jersey over here. There was also S. Marusak and Michael Marusak, a man named Allen, another Dooley, Koskoska, Baker, Silk, Jack Madoc, and not Jack Madoc that you're thinking of, Steve Mills, Bill Frawley, Frank Sturm, Buckwait, Jabelski, Hansen, Leo Keller, Clemish, and Purcell. Now, some of these men, we know their first names because of other newspaper records, both from when they were playing and afterwards. But many of them we simply only know by their last name. Now, this game, this 1924 game against Bridgeport, was notable. The newspaper reported that this game was marred by impromptu fighting in which players and spectators were involved. We don't know why, and we don't know the result, but it seemed to be a much harsher game to play and also to watch. In 1924, the team ended their season with 1 loss, 1 tie, and 7 wins. And because of this, we have another photograph in our collection. For this photograph, we only have a negative. It might be fairly hard to see, but we have this photograph here in this protective sleeve. Now, in our archive, when we have negatives like this, we scan them and we create a photograph or a scan that lives in our records. Now, this is the scan printed photograph of that negative. If you can see down here, I am sorry for the view, on the bottom, you can see that it says state champions. In 1927, another notable game was played. In this game, another teammate called Michael Cusio was in the middle of a forward pass, catching it. He was an end. But before he could catch this and score anything for his team, some police officers walked onto the field, and he was arrested. Now, the newspaper article says that he started a gang fight of 5 people in Easton several weekends before at a dance. The 4 other men involved were also arrested, but all 5 were released on bail of $50. Now, Cusio was able to receive bail and return to the same game that he was removed from to help his team win against the Bridgeport Black Rock Pirates of a score of 19-0. It seems a strange little story for this team. The last entry that we found while the team was actively playing games was in 1931, in November. And it involves a scandal that is still unsolved to this day. The Owls were leading the Wanderer Juniors of Saugatuck, another Westport team, by a score of 20-0, when the Westport fullback fumbled the ball. And as the referee went to retrieve the ball and start play again, he could not find the ball that had been fumbled. And it turns out no one could find the ball. The Owls manager of the time, John Ryan, reported the disappearance to the police, but the ball was never found. And at the time, they only played with one ball. They did not have a backup. So the game was ended without a result. Now, we do know of several other teammates because of something that was held later on. The first mention that we see is in 1964. The Sportsmen of Westport held a dinner of champions where they honored Westport players of the past from multiple sports teams, not just football. In 1964, Joseph Nazaro was honored. James Maceo was honored in 1980. And Russell Russ Smith received his award in 1972. We know of a reunion that happened in both 1957 and 1959, both of which Willard Williams, who received this sweater, was instrumental in planning. And there is one mention of one of the very first players, Charlie Quigley, who is quoted in saying he played in 1999 after his return from World War I. Several other players were Harry Quinn, Steve Mills, and Frank Sturm. Now, there are several other items on the table, actual football equipment, and they all belong to a notable Westporter, but he did not play football for Westport. I'm going to show you a couple of these items, but for just a few minutes while I'm describing them, see if you can guess who they might be. Keep in mind they're a Westporter, but they did not play for Westport. I'm going to put on a pair of gloves. These gloves protect our collections from the oils on my hands. Now we have three pieces of football equipment. One of them is here on the table, kind of front and center, and they are some pants. They have padding on the sides, they lace up in the front, and they also have padding on their knees. We also have a football helmet. This was the back of the helmet, the front of the helmet, and then these ear kind of holes and flaps on the sides. It is made of a hard leather, but it's definitely not the kind of football helmets that we would recommend our players use today. And the other piece that we have are these shoulder pads back here. They're actually separate pieces. So this hard leather is laced up in the front and in the back. And then we have two shoulder pad pieces over here that actually go underneath. They do have arm straps as well that would link on the arms. Now, these pads, unless anyone has any guesses on who they might belong to, I will let you know. I'll give you just one moment more. We also are asking our community to reach out to us if they have any information on the Owls football team. We would love to learn even more about these players. If you have any more photographs of the team, any newspaper articles, we are always interested in taking a look at them. If you want to take a picture and send it to our email, you can send it to archives@westporthistory.org, and we would love to take a look at them. We would also like your help in identifying any of these players. If you knew any of these players and have photographs of them, we would love to be able to identify who is who in these photographs that you've seen. And again, we're always interested in expanding our knowledge on these topics. So no one has guessed who our mystery player is. So these pants, the leather helmet, and the shoulder pads, as well as the kind of rucksack that they go in, all belonged to Paul Newman. Now, again, he did not play in Westport, but he did play for his high school. And if you actually look very, very closely, I'll put my gloves back on, I apologize. You look very, very closely on the football helmet, specifically. On the side, you can see his name written there very, very faintly. You can see the W just over there for Paul Newman. There is also a label just inside the pants that have his name sewn into them. I'm not going to lift the pants because they are a little large. Those are all of the items that I would like to present to you tonight. If you have any questions on any of the items, the photographs, Paul Newman's equipment, or any of the stories that I told about the football team, I am more than happy to answer any of those. If you have any questions about our collection or about something, if you have any recommendations that you'd like to see in our Tuesday Treasures in the future, I am always happy to take recommendations as well. We do a Tuesday Treasure every week, as I mentioned. Next week, April 14th, also at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be presenting treasures related to tea time trimmings. So you will see different accessories that both men and women would have been wearing to kind of tea time or spring garden parties, things like that. We do have a question. Was Paul's equipment used for recreation or for a movie? That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. It does seem fairly small. It does have a high school printed on the helmet. Just here you can see high school printed, but I am not actually sure about that question. I will get back to you on that one. That's an excellent question. We have another question about how are costumes stored? So our costumes, just like all of our collections, are stored within our collections area. This is a secure area. It's also controlled very, very strictly with light. We want to keep all of our collections in very, very dark conditions. Also a fairly cool environment, and also a humidity controlled environment. This keeps the fabric from fading. Keeping it in direct light for more than a couple of months will actually lead to fading. And all of our costumes are either hung, if they are in condition that's appropriate to be hung, or they are placed within an archival box, which actually keeps them safe from dust, also keeps them safe from light, where they can be packed away and they can rest very safely. All of our costumes are also they include a tag, actually over here on the pants, actually right here on the sweater. They all include an archival tag, which lets us know exactly what they are. They include an accession number, lets us know where their information is, so we can look that up really quickly. We also have a question of who donated the owl's sweater. So the sweater was actually donated in 1988 by Willard Williams. He was very fortunate to give us his own sweater as a player. We were very, very fortunate to receive this very, very kind donation. Give just another moment if you have any other questions. Again, if you have questions that I don't get to while we are live streaming, feel free to email or comment below this video. We always are checking our social media and our email accounts. We are always happy to answer any questions that you might have. Our photographs are also stored very similarly to our costumes, obviously not hung or placed with archival batting or anything so that they can keep their structure, but they are also kept in our vault, which is a secure location that's climate controlled, light sensitive, kept in archival folders and boxes, and categorized so that we can find them really quickly. In our collection, we have thousands and thousands of photographs, so it's really key that we keep them organized, just as our costumes, so that we can find them quickly and we can keep them safe. We have another question. Did you get the photos from Mr. Willard as well? We did not. We actually were given the photographs by another Westport man, no relation to the team, actually. He found the photographs at an estate sale, and in seeing Westport, Connecticut printed on the photographs, he very kindly brought them in, not knowing much about the team, but again, seeing that they were printed with our name, with Westport's name, he found, or he thought, that they would be a great addition to the museum's collection. And it turned out that we already had the sweater, and we also had the negative from another collection. I believe that was from a newspaper collection that was given to the museum. And we were very, very fortunate to build our knowledge of these football players with 3 separate donations. Unless anyone has any other questions, I am going to end it here for the evening. Again, thank you so much for joining the museum and me. I will be back next week to present another Tuesday Treasure, again on tea time trimmings. There might be some teacups, but also kind of hats and different things that ladies and men would have worn to some of these early spring garden parties. So thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to sign off for the evening. Thank you so much, and please join us again next week.